Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're going to look at the Fury of Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. This is annual number 3. For those of you who do not know, annuals came out annually, once a year. They usually came out in the summertime because the theory was, kids had more time to read comic books, but they didn't always. And also, I have to remind you that when I was a kid, I didn't know when annuals were coming out. They just showed up, and they didn't always come out on schedule, meaning it's not like every July the annuals came out. They came out when they came out. And so a lot of times they took me by surprise like this, and my friends would pick them up, or I'd see one, and it was always a big deal. Back then it was a big deal when an annual showed up. And what do you want me to say? They're double sized, they're $1.25. I think the regular comics were 75 cents at the time. And let's talk about this. So why did I pick this comic? Well, Brian Bow, the writer and artist of the wonderful comic Wolf and Batsy, requested it. Now, I love requests, so that goes for anybody. If you request, if you're one of my people who watch my videos and comment, and and you request a comic, if I have the comic, I'll put it on top of my pile. Why not? Because to me, the hardest part about this channel is laboring over which comic to showcase. And since I do 7 videos a week, I'm always like, what should I do? What should I do? Given I got 55,000 comic books and I can't choose which comics to pick. So it's nice when you guys make the decision for me. So I appreciate it. That goes for anybody. I know I have one outstanding request. I'm going to try to honor it by the weekend because I have to actually read the comic first. I have the comic. I didn't read it yet, but focus. Okay, so this is Fury of Firestorm. Firestorm was created by Jerry Conway and Al Milgrom, and it lasted 6 issues. And it was canceled. Not because the comic was bad or anything like that. It was canceled because DC had a distribution problem. And 2/3 of all their comics were canceled. I think that was like 1976. I'm not sure exactly what year that was. But then this is 1985. Comics, DC's doing pretty good. So they brought back all the second-tier characters. Firestorm and they made room for guys like Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. It was a really good time to be a DC fan. Okay, so let's look at this. Now, I like this cover here. I like just the simplicity of it. So let's explain this cover. For those of you who don't know, my policy is every video is probably somebody's first video. Not everybody knows Firestorm. So let's talk about Firestorm for a minute. First off, how can you not like this costume? These puffy sleeves, that is a great costume. Amazing costume. So he's got nuclear powers. And the whole conceit of his premise is that it's nuclear fission. It's nuclear fusion. I confuse myself because I'm a stupid person. So we got Roger Stern, Dr. Martin Stern, and Ronnie Raymond. He's a physics professor. He's a high school student. Now, it kind of reminds me of Spider-Man in that it's the teen high school story, but they kind of turn it on the ear. He's a bad student, and he's a good jock. So he's the opposite of Peter Parker. Ronnie is actually pretty cool. He's a cool sporto kid, and he's bad at school. So he's spending time being tutored by Dr. Stern. Dr. Stern, they get caught in a nuclear experiment, and they fuse together. So the two people become one, and they turn into Firestorm, and that's his power. So it's all fusion based powers. And I don't know where this costume comes from. I don't know who designed that, but that is just awesome. That is a great costume. One of my favorite costumes. Just great. And as an aside, because Brian brought up the Superpowers line of action figures when we were talking earlier today, he brought up the Green Lantern. The Green Lantern superpower figures is one of the greatest action figures ever made, because as much as I don't like the Green Lantern, I got to admit it is a cool freaking costume. This is probably the second best action figure. If you ever so lucky as to see those original Superpowers action figures, pick yourself up a Green Lantern and a Firestorm. They are so good. Aside over. All right, the puffy sleeves. So a Firestorm, it's supposed to invoke like nuclear explosions and the fireballs from a nuclear blast. So there you go, Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. I dig this. I really do. I'm actually kind of happy he picked this because I haven't revisited Firestorm in a long time. So look at this, fans choose. So that's Dick Giordano. Oh, and the I don't know why, but the comic, well, I know why. The comics are really good. The binding's really good once the cool. So let's look at the edition before I go any further. So Fury of Firestorm Annual 3, 1985. Okay, and you see these G2104. I think that's a color guide. Whenever I ask about that is like, I don't know who writes on it, the editor or whatever, or the writer. Probably not the writer, probably the editor, and it's for coloring. So let's look at this. Nice splash page. A splash page is usually the first page of a comic, and to be a splash page, it has to be one panel. Just look at, I don't know, the simple elegance of that. You know, these you don't really see. These are called caption boxes. You don't really see them too much anymore. You know, everything is just dialogue. You know, the thought balloon and the caption boxes seem to be a thing of the past. I'm a big fan of both of them. So here he is, he's flying. What are his powers? His powers are pretty much whatever. You know, he's fusion, so he could do anything. He could fly, he could super strong, he could control his density, so he could become like super dense, he could become ghost-like, and most importantly, he could rearrange matter. So he's pretty powerful. Oh, I need to point out the thing about him is when he transforms, Ronnie seems to have like the prime abilities. He's like the alpha, and Dr. Stern is the beta. So meaning that it's basically Ron's body mutated a little bit. So Ronnie is in control of the body. He's the physical guy, and Dr. Stern is like a presence, like almost like a spectral ghost-like presence, and it tells Ronnie, like it gives Ronnie ideas what to do. And I forget, because for the longest time, Dr. Stern had no recollection that he was Firestorm. Like they would both disappear, and they would show up like in the you know, if Ronnie was over here and Dr. Stern was over here, Firestorm would appear in between them, like equidistant between two. But only Ronnie would be in control, and Dr. Stern would be like a conscience and like an advisor. And then when they split, Dr. Stern would have no memory, and poor guy was starting to think he had like, well, he did have mental problems, you know, in the strictest sense of the word. But you started to think he was having blackout spells. It was pretty, and then Dr. Stern started to know what was going on. So see, they always draw him like in this ghost-like thing. So he's going over, and what's he doing? He's helping the police, you know, drug smugglers. They're you know, he's doing super heroics. Just look at this. I love the hand, the foreshortened hand. So cool. Such a well-drawn comic. I really dig it. Really do. And here we got the credits. So the title is Sparks, and written by Jerry Conway, the writer, and by Raphael Kayanan. I wanted to say it respectfully because I know I always mispronounce the man's name. I'll talk a little bit about Jerry Conway. Jerry Conway is a legendary writer. He created Firestorm. He also created the Punisher over at Marvel. Forgive me while I take a sip of coffee. And I don't know if he's still working today. I do know he's still alive, because he showed up over the Punisher kerfuffle. That this isn't the time or place to talk about the Punisher kerfuffle, so I won't. But I know he's still alive. I do not know if he's still working. So you know, I can't comment on that. But he wrote this series. I think lasted 125 issues, and then there was a 6-issue series that was canceled, and Jerry Conway wrote about half of it, and then John Ostrander took over it. And I as much as I like Firestorm, for some reason I really remember the John Ostrander stories more than I remember the Jerry Conway stories, and that doesn't mean either one of them was better or worse. It's just my crazy brain. Raphael Kaya, man, he got his start on this series. So this was his first comic. He's a Filipino-born artist. He emigrated to America, became an American citizen, and he's still working. Very, very talented. I just wonderful super heroics. I just born to draw superhero comics. Atkin and Garvey are the inkers. Nancy Houlihan is the colorist. I gotta say, I'm sorry, I don't know much about her. Duncan Andrews letterer, and means is to say I don't know much about letters. I only have like 2 or 3 letters that I have on the top of my head that I can recognize their style. It's mean to say. And Janice Race, I don't know much about that. So here we have these villains. They're in these form-fitting, super heroic, you know, villain outfits. And what are they doing? They're gonna fire back at the police. So this guy's got like laser beams, it looks like, and Firestorm is putting out the fire, and he's just blasting the ball. Now remember, if he's shooting these beams, he could do like so many things. Like he could just turn stuff into cotton. He doesn't have to be like a force of destruction. And what I do think is neat about it is without Dr. Stern controlling him and teaching him the chemical formulas of all of these things, he would be a force of destruction. So it's kind of neat that Ronnie contributes the physicality and you know the athleticism to the hero, and Dr. Stern gives the science knowledge and the ability to, you know, the knowledge of the periodic table and how to rearrange the atoms and the molecules. It's cool. It's cool. So here he is. You know, the guy shoots a RPG or rocket propelled grenade, and what did he do? He turned it basically Howard the Duck. You know, and then he turns ghost-like as one of them just passed through him because he was about to get hit. But oh no, it's gonna go to the Statue Ball Liberty, as my little brother said. We were traveling, and he got all excited. He saw the Statue of Liberty in the distance, and he stood up in the backseat of the station wagon and went, "Statue Ball Liberty!" And that became, you know, every family has like little family stories. That became, so he's ghost-like. So he's following the bomb, and what's happening? His powers fizzle out, and the Statue of Liberty gets damaged. So, of course, in the newspaper, Firestorm blows it. Look at that. The Statue of Liberty's arm is destroyed. And, you know, everybody's like goofing on him. It's kind of like a Peter Parker moment. You know, I can't believe he did this. There's the student newspaper. The hot chick is talking to the other person, the girl that he likes, and he's embarrassed. You know, he's a sporto. She likes the smart girls. And I just think it draws cute girls, you know. So he's just walking down the street. It's like, why? You know, I can't believe this. You know, I was doing so good, and then all of a sudden my powers went chaotic and fizzled out. Here we got this bizarre little transforming watch with bonkers. I do like looking at the ads. And here's where the story really starts to kick in. So, interlude, Miami, Florida. So Firestorm, he has world trotting adventures because he's like a Superman tier powerhouse. And this junkie over here and his junkie girlfriend, they're like, he's going through withdrawal symptoms, and you know, she's like, oh, it's okay, you know, what's his name, Fido or something, oh, Frito. I can't believe I remembered that, Frito. And he's lashing out, you know, and unfortunately, I've had the displeasure of having friends that were going through withdrawal symptoms, and yes, they do become nasty. You know, every hand outreached becomes in their mind that you're going to grab something. You know what I mean? It's really, really bad, really, really rough. You know, I do not envy anybody who has loved ones, friends, or whatever going through withdrawals. It's bad. It's bad. But let's get through those withdrawals. You know, focus. So he's attacking her, and she had enough of his nonsense. Don't blame her, you know. And he's just freaking out. You know, why don't this pain go away? You know, with physical withdrawals, it's like I said, it's trouble. Look at this. You know, buildings in the background. So this is Midtown Manhattan. Dr. Stern, and later on, Dr. Stern develops cancer and goes bald. You know, there's a whole bunch of like, they're playing with the aspect of nuclear power. I don't know why I thought of that. Just looking at this nice head of Steranko hair. You know, Jim Steranko is a comic book artist who still to this day has a big old pompadour. So, you know, they're going through stuff. And so at this point, Dr. Stern knows that he's Firestorm. So for the longest time, he didn't know. So now he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he comes up with the theory that that sunspot activity is causing permeations in the solar radiation, and ultimately, their theory is that Firestorm is ultimately powered by the sun. You know, how could a human being project all this force and flight abilities, stuff like that? The power has to come from somewhere. So they're going through this theory that the Firestorm is solar powered. Makes sense because the sun is fusion powered, and that's the source of his powers. And because of the sunspots, it's affecting his ability. So, you know, to his credit, he's not a good student, but this is real. This is affecting him. He likes being a superhero. He likes, you know, of course he likes the power, but he likes helping. You know, he's a good guy. Ronnie may be a dumb jock, but he's a good guy. So here I guess I put the cart before the horse, but he's explaining how the how the fusion works, and how the sun powers up, and how the sunspots cause like problems. He's explaining it like when you breathe, you need oxygen, but sometimes you get, if you get carbon dioxide, the carbon dioxide will bond with the cells easier and faster than oxygen, and that's why you suffocate in carbon dioxide. And and he's listening like a good student. So here we go, and he's going on a trip. Bon voyage, Martin Stern. I keep saying Roger Stern. Roger Stern is a comic book writer. So he's like, oh, he's speechless. It's a surprise party, and one of his other teachers, I think it's his gym teacher. He's making up for, just like Peter Parker. He's always having problems in school. Why? Because Dr. Octopus attacks, or the Black Bison attacks, more appropriately for Firestorm. So he's always missing. He's always missing credits. He's always missing school. So he always has to work things out. And it's good because the kids who read comic books, I hate to be like my representation, but it's something that kids could relate to. Having troubles in school, like any boys or girls, black or white, whatever. You're having troubles in school. I don't care if you're the best student or the worst student. You could relate to school troubles, right? So there you go. That's why I like the Peter Parker trope. There's so many Peter Parkers. There's Peter Parker, obviously. Then there's Ronnie Raymond, Firestorm, and the other one I could think of is a Ray. Why can't Ronnie Raymond? I think is Nova, right? Is that his real name? But they're all basically the same secret identity with minor twists. So the girl's holding his hand. Dr. Stern, she likes those smart guys. So he's like, wow, look at that, good for you. And he's like, check out my muscles, because he's a jerk. And here's poor Frito. He's going down the street, basically begging. This is the guy who supplies the drugs, and he's like, you don't have any money. Get out of here. Get out of here. And he's like, oh man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And just like it always happens, the pain, it's just causing problems, and he develops electrical powers. Don't you hate that when you're going through drug withdrawals and you just develop electrical powers? It happens all the time to me. I don't know about you guys, but it happens all the time to me. So he's freaking out, causing static. I like that. Dr. Stern's getting some lovey-doveys over here. A little bit of at this point, I have to talk about a little bit of the writing. In DC, I've said this many, many times, that I wasn't really a big fan of pre-crisis DC. Now, as an adult, I'm learning that I missed out on wonderful war comics and Western comics. And because it was always like you ever watch The Simpsons? The Simpsons go through an adventure, and at the end of every episode, the status quo is reset, and then the next episode, it doesn't matter. Like you could miss 6 episodes in a row, doesn't matter. It's all status quo reset at the beginning of every episode. But so Marvel had like soap opera type story. So things changed over time. There was the illusion of progression. I'm not going to say there was progression, but there was the illusion of progression. So like it made you think that things were changing. Aunt May would be sick and it would last for 6 issues, and then then just forgot about it, whatever. But for a little while, you were caught up in the story. That's like soap opera stories, and Marvel had that, and then DC, as far as I know, the first comics that adopted that type of storytelling was Jim Shooter when he was writing the Legion of Superheroes, and then Marv Wolfman when he wrote the Teen Titans. And it's no coincidence that those are the first 2 DC comic books that I got drawn into and really, really liked. Then after the Crisis on Infinite Earth, that just became that one of the whole purposes of that was to make DC more like Marvel. DC realized that they had to accept that the for modern audience, as much as I hate saying that, but that's pretty much. So this is an example of, there's an A story, there's a B story, there's a C story. So this is an example of other stories that are being told. The superhero story, the personality story. And since you have the superheroes really 2 main characters, you have, you can have an A story, B story. It really is a clever system. So, and I also think at this time, he could, it used to be Ronnie, just when he turned into Firestorm, Dr. Stern had no control over it. Now I think Dr. Stern has to okay the transformation process. So it's not as much as an inconvenience on his life as it used to be. So he could say things like, no, not now. I don't want to deal with this right now. So Ronnie has to wait, which could be a problem. Ronnie could be falling off a building. So now they're transforming here. So he's actually calling Ronnie now, and boom, look at that. Look at that. Oh man, that is just so amazing. Why isn't this guy working? Why isn't Marvel hiring him? He's a glorious artist, just so good, perfect for superheroics. That is just outstanding. And here he is. What is he doing? He's having internal monologues. Look, thought balloons. You don't say it, but the thought balloons. I think you couldn't get rid of the thought balloons in this particular comic, because a lot of the dialogue is within his head. It's between Ronnie and Dr. Stern. So it would be like improper storytelling if you didn't have thought balloons. But anyway, so he's talking about like, our powers are getting crazy. I have this theory. We're gonna fix it. It's the sunspot activity. He's flying by satellites because he could synthesize his own oxygen. I don't know if he doesn't need to breathe, or if he could synthesize oxygen and everything for himself. So he's just flying around in space. And here I like this. Dr. Stern is giving him the equations to go to warp speed. I love this. And he's flying to the sun. Just so freaking cool. So freaking cool. And what's he doing? He's going into the sun itself. What is that called? The photosphere? Because I don't even think even he could withstand the core of the sun, And what's he doing? He's absorbing and bypassing the sunspots to kind of like flushing out his system. He's getting rid of the bad radiation and replacing it with the good radiation. And now we have so this is like the B story. Now the A story is back. Fredo is using his electrical abilities, his newfound electrical building, and look, he's transforming into this freak, and he's calling himself Sparks. Now, if I remember correctly, he doesn't really need the drugs anymore because he's like an electrical being, but his mind is still human, so he wants the drugs. He's no longer physically addicted, but I think he's like psychologically addicted. So he's going after the drug dealers, and he's just blasting Rooney and everybody. I want to put that getting away, and he's 9 hours later at dawn. So he just flew to the sun and back. Supercharge himself, but he's still human, and a superhero has to have logical limitations, otherwise it's just not good. If you take it from me, a guy who's never written a comic book in his life, well, I take it back. I've written comic books, but nobody but my friends have read them so far. But you got to have a weakness. It's not fun without a weakness. So if you make all-powerful, godlike man, nobody is going to enjoy your comic book. You have to come up with an extremely clever perspective on it. So he lands, he splits, and now they're eating. Just they have to replace all the energy that they expect. So what do they do? They're talking. That should fix our powers and blah blah blah. And they're watching the news from Miami. He's like, we got to go. We got to take care of this guy. And note the backgrounds over here. We got it's set up that it's an apartment. This is one of the things that only works in comic books. Forgive me while I take another sip. Man, I'm talking a long time. But this is an annual. Annuals are double sized. Notice the background. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 panels. 2 panels have backgrounds. Our brain is remembering that they're in an apartment, and this is a cheat. So Raphael drawing the TV, he's drawing him at this awkward angle. That really isn't the best panel in the world. Who watches TV like that, right? Where is that TV? This is more natural, like, and this is the old knob TVs, with the rabbit ears and antenna. This is 1985. The past is a foreign country, guys. But we don't have the backgrounds, and we're not really missing it. Our brain is completing the picture. That's a time-saving comic book trick. It works. So here we have, you draw this establishing shot, and then over here you don't have the background. Why? Because she's in the sky. the sky is red over here, but the sky is yellow over here. Why? Because you don't want to have the same colors. If I don't know color theory, but I know comic books well enough, pardon me, that if, see over here we have the yellow sky, over here we have the helicopter. If all of the sky was the same color, our brain kind of like makes it one image. So it's good that they do things like that, you know, even though it's not really realistic. When have you seen the sky this yellow? You know, but it works. You know, it's comic book colors, man. I just love this. What do they call this? Flat colors? You know, I'm sure Brian's going to watch this because this is his request. I'll ask directly to Brian. Is this called flat colors? This is before computer coloring. So this is actually, what's her name? I forgot the poor woman's name. The you know, who colors. She's using you know, either markers or inks. You know, I just look at this. Sparks just going nuts. He's hitting the helicopter. He's freaking out. He's yelling. Remember, he was created. So they're saying that the same bizarre sunspot activity that messed up Firestorm also interacted with these bizarre drugs in his system. It's kind of a hokey, but you know what? Bizarre experimental drugs have been the you know, it's a cheap way to get a superpower. Is just like, I know you're gonna kill me, but being a mutant is just a cheap way to get superpowers. You know, Stan Lee even said that he came up with the idea of mutants because he was really tired of coming up with origins. You know what I mean? So there you go. You know, experimental drugs. It worked for a Cloak and Dagger, and now it's working for Sparks. Although I do like the name. So you know, the girlfriend is seeking refuge in the drug dealer, you know, because she's like, he's coming to get me, he's coming to get me. Firestorm is arriving on the scene. I just love that. That is just such a, look at that panel. I don't want to say take out the word balloons, but if take this image, Photoshop the word balloons out, that is just a great panel. That is just classics. You know, I could zoom in on that. That's why I'm holding the phone like this, because I feel I could zoom in. Again, jury's out. What should I do? How should I hold the phone? There we go. Tripod. You know, whenever I hold the tripod, I can't zoom in on stuff. I can't move the camera around. So Firestorm shows up. He's fighting Sparks, and he underestimated him. You know, and Sparks has the raw power, but he doesn't have the experience. And already Roddy bangs his head. And then Sparks is going around. He wants revenge against the drug people. So at this point, if I remember correctly, he doesn't even want the drugs anymore. He just like wants revenge because these people gave him these bad drugs, and now he's like, you put me through this pain and everything. So all I want is revenge. He's like, he's coming, man. Wait, we got to do something. So he's taking like perverse pleasure in torturing these drug dealers. Hey, you want to get a video cassette of the Transformers? Look at that. Transformers and Starfire is getting married in the new Teen Titans, and it's not to Nightwing. Yeah, I love that. Do yourself a favor, guy. Get yourself some collections of the Marv Wolfman, George Perez Teen Titans. Just amazing comic books. Amazing comic books. So here we have Sparks over here. He's I think it's funny that the electrical power is being portrayed as pink, but his body is blue. So I guess they got to do a different color. Now it's purple over here, and it's just shizracking him. Ronnie's getting his bearings together, and what does he do? He's like looking around, and he can increase his strength. I hope I'm strong enough to do this. What are you planning to do? This guy's full of static, and the things you do with static electricity is you ground it, right? And it's funny because they were talking about, he needs to get his grades up in physics, so he's remembering some of the lessons that the teacher took him. So he's taking an iron bar, and why is my life? What Jake said about Fredo can't be true, man. Why is my life falling apart? So this is the ex-girlfriend. She started to like wonder, should she go back to Fredo? And here he is. He's going after everybody that wronged him. And like I said before, I had a couple of friends, in college that were drug addicts, that became drug addicts, some of them ended their addiction. Thank goodness. Some of them succumbed to their addiction, unfortunately. But they all had the one thing in common. While they were in the drug, it was almost like they were possessed, and everything became like a twisted mirror of reality. So she had to get away from this guy who was drug addicted. He's like thinking of it as a betrayal when, this girl, I don't know enough about her. Did she betray him? No, she just had to remove herself from this negative situation. And he takes it as betrayal. So he wants to kill everybody that betrayed him. Naked static guy. And what's he do? He jams this and throws it in the ground. And what's it doing? It's draining off the energy. Because I'm an electrician. This is solid to me. It's logical. It makes sense. Electricity wants to go to ground. That's what electricity always wants. So if for whatever reason you had the magic ability to levitate and you were to touch electric wires, you would be safe because you're not making contact with the ground. The moment you put your foot on the ground, boom, you complete the circuit. The electricity is going to pass through you, and that's when you're going to get zapparooниed. So that's what he's doing. He's hitting them with this, and then he's jamming it in the ground, and the electricity is draining out of him. But unfortunately, Sparks is, at this point, pure electricity. So he's getting shocked. You know, he can't just be immune to everything. Otherwise, there's no drama. The girl's like, you saved me. You saved me. He's like, yeah, that hurt. You know, I can't believe I did that. And then Bill Cosby says, if you can't send money, if you can't send you, send money. Right now. Okay? So Bill Cosby, he wants you. And if you can't come, send him money. All right? And we all know Bill Cosby wouldn't want. And here he shows up again. So Firestorm's like, what's going on? He's pelting them with sand. And the sand is like fusing into glass pellets. Like, that must hurt. You know? But again, Firestorm is in the air right now. So he shouldn't be getting hurt right now unless he counts as being grounded. But what do I know? You know? We're talking about magic superpowers, right? So he's getting fried. He's getting fried. And what does he do? He throws him into the water. Now, again, the salt water is a conductant, and the salt water can't help but touch the ground. So this is, boom, you know, he is getting shocked. We all know that. You know, when there's lightning out, you get out of the pool because the chlorine water in the pool will be, believe it or not, pure distilled water with nothing in it is an insulator, but it's never like that. There's always something in the water, a little bit of salt, a little bit of chlorine, and salt, you know, is I forget the I forget the term, but you know, chlorine is a conductant, and that's what causes the problem. So salt water, boom, bad news. Electricity power just vaporizes. Look at that. And what do we got here? Frito now. The power just came out. And look, I have a feeling his luck ran out a long time ago. So here's some drugs. You know, he was clutching on to drugs the whole time that he was Electro Sparks guy. And I love looking at the letters pages. I just love it because I like to see if I recognize any names. I do not recognize any of these names. But I will point this out. Jeanette Kahn is the president and publisher of DC Comics. Jeanette Kahn was the most powerful woman in comic books for well over a decade in 1985. So I know it's snarky to say this. I know this, but I just can't stand when these people who just got into comic books in the past couple of years talk about there's been no women in comic books, when literally women have been the most powerful people in comic books for longer than half these people have been alive. And now we got the Search for the Justice Society. Janice is the editor. Look, Janice is the editor. The editor is the boss. Jerry Conway, the guy who created the Punisher, his boss is a woman, and his woman boss's boss is a woman. Yeah, I don't know. I'm beating a dead horse. I'm sorry. We got the checklist over here. Batman and the Outsiders. I collected that. Green Lantern. I didn't. Sergeant Rock. I should have collected, but I didn't. Warlord. I collected, but you know what? I realized that I haven't read them all. I think I only read up to issue 12, but I do have them all. I bought them in an eBay auction. Blue Devil, I really enjoyed. The Who's Who, you could see I did the whole series. Firestorm Annual, I'm talking about. New Teen Titans, and Infinity Incorporated. The Infinitors return home and discover a new midnight. This was the beginning of the end. The Infinity Incorporated never really withstood the Crisis on Infinite Earth. The Crisis on Infinite Earth really just gutted that comic. And I was talking about the superpowers line. Look at this. Look at that Green Lantern figure. It won't focus. These are amazing. I love that Brainiac. That Flash was great. In the second run, they had Firestorm, but I loved that they had cloth capes. Oh man, I think I still have them in a box in the garage. I used to collect all these action figures, but I ran out of room. You know, I can only have so many obsessions. So there you go. 35 minutes talking about Fury of Firestorm. And you know what? I enjoyed every minute of it. This is a comic that I'm glad to revisit. And again, please request comics. I'm openly soliciting requests. You know, because if I have the comic, I will showcase the comic. Why not? You know, let's all have fun. It's about fun. If I have the comic and I like the comic, you know, if I have the comic and I hate it, I don't really want to waste time being negative. So give me those two caveats, okay? All right, thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow with another video. Bye-bye.